You've heard it 100 times. Control what you can control. You put it on a sticky note, maybe a wallpaper on your phone, and still, you're anxious about the promotion. Still checking your phone for a text that hasn't come. Still replaying an argument from 3 days ago, trying to win it in your head. If controlling what you can control actually worked the way self-help sells it, why does it feel like nothing? That phrase didn't come from a productivity coach. It came from a man named Epictetus, born a slave in the Roman Empire in the 1st century. He wasn't writing from comfort. He was writing from a position most of us will never know, a life where almost everything really was outside his control. His body wasn't his own. His freedom wasn't his own. And out of that, he built one of the most rigorous philosophical systems in history, later written down by his student Arian in a text called The Discourses. The reason his ideas matter now isn't because they're catchy. It's because they were forged under conditions that expose whether an idea actually holds weight or just sounds good on a poster. Here's what Epictetus actually argued, and it's more precise than the version that gets passed around today. He starts with a distinction, and everything else in his philosophy builds on it. There are things that are up to us, and things that are not up to us. That's it. That's the whole foundation. But the way he draws that line is the part people skip. What's up to us, in his view, is basically one category: our own judgments, our opinions, our choices about how to respond, not our actions in the full sense, because an action can be interrupted, blocked, prevented by circumstance, not our bodies, not our reputation, not our health, not other people's opinions of us, not even strictly the outcome of something we tried our best at. All of that sits in the not up to us pile. Now, most self-help versions of this stop right there and say something like, focus on your effort, not the outcome, which isn't wrong, but it's shallow. It misses why Epictetus drew the line where he did. He drew it there because he was making an argument about where suffering actually comes from. His claim is that we don't suffer because of events. We suffer because of the judgments we attach to events. Losing something isn't inherently painful. The pain comes from the belief that we were entitled to keep it, or that we can't be okay without it. A person insults you, and the sting isn't really coming from their words. It's coming from your own internal verdict that their words say something true and threatening about who you are. This is a much stronger claim than, don't worry about things you can't change. Epictetus is saying that even your emotional reaction to those things is, in principle, within your control. Because the emotion isn't produced by the event, it's produced by your interpretation of the event. Which means the work isn't just focus on effort. The work is examining the judgment underneath the feeling and asking whether it's actually true. He gives a method for this, too. Before you react to anything, an insult, a setback, a rejection, pause and ask, is this thing itself bad, or is it my judgment calling it bad? He wants you to separate the raw fact from the story you've wrapped around it. A canceled meeting is just a canceled meeting. This means they don't respect me, is a judgment you added. And that added judgment is the actual source of the frustration you're carrying around all day. This is also where his idea of roles comes in, which barely ever gets mentioned in the popularized version. Epictetus argues that once you stop being consumed by controlling outcomes, your energy is freed up to focus on playing your role well, as a son, a worker, a friend, a citizen, regardless of how the external situation turns out. The goal was never detachment for its own sake. The goal was redirecting all your effort toward the one thing that was ever actually yours to shape, your character in this moment, regardless of result. Here's where this actually lands in a normal week. You send a message to someone you're interested in. No reply. Under the shallow version of this philosophy, you'd tell yourself, well, that's outside my control, shrug, and go numb about it, which usually just means suppressing it until it leaks out sideways later. Under Epictetus's actual argument, the move is different. The lack of a reply is neutral. It's just data. The judgment you're tempted to add, I wasn't interesting enough, or I already know how this ends,
That's the part doing the damage, and that's the part you actually have jurisdiction over, not the outcome, the verdict.
Same thing at work. You put in real effort on a project, and someone else gets the credit. The self-help slogan tells you to let it go and move on, which usually just becomes a kind of forced positivity that doesn't hold. Epictetus would ask you a sharper question. Did you play your role, the role of someone doing good work, with integrity? If the answer is yes, the credit going elsewhere is unfortunate, but it doesn't touch the actual thing you were responsible for. The suffering only shows up when you quietly attach your sense of worth to a reward that was never fully yours to secure in the first place. This is also, frankly, where a lot of modern masculinity content gets this philosophy backwards. Which brings us to the part most videos skip entirely. The most common misreading of Epictetus, especially in self-improvement spaces, is turning focus on what's up to you into don't feel anything and dominate everything you can control. That's not Stoicism. That's armor with a Roman name on it. Epictetus never argued for suppressing emotion. He argued for examining the judgment behind the emotion, which is a completely different act. Suppression is avoidance. Examination is honesty. A lot of self-help content sells the aesthetic of control. Go silent, don't react, look unbothered, while skipping the actual internal work of asking, is this judgment even true? That's not discipline. That's just performing calm while the untouched judgment sits there doing damage underneath. The other misuse is turning this into an excuse for passivity. That's not up to me becomes a way to avoid trying at all. But Epictetus was explicit that you still act, still try, still play your role fully. What you release is your grip on guaranteeing the result, not the effort itself. So here's the line worth actually remembering. You were never in charge of what happens to you, only of the verdict you hand down about it. If that's useful to you, the channel's built around ideas like this. Real arguments, not slogans. Stick around if you want more of it.